bits of halacha, or
I was not paying too much attention to what you guys were saying because I was trying to figure out if Enoch actually showed up in the Dead Sea Scrolls or not.
yep,
He-
And
yep.
well, Father Stephen certainly says that they were very much focused around Enoch, but I can't. But it doesn't seem like there's a Hebrew manuscript anywhere in the Dead Sea Scrolls.
It's written in Greek, I thought.
No, it's also. I think it might be in Aramaic.
I mean, I'm not seeing any reference to an actual manuscript among the Dead Sea Scrolls,
So
which is
it's
so.
not.
Let me put my cards on the table. I think the Dead Sea Scrolls are a revelation, modern day revelation of God from God to help us better understand what should be and is the Bible. And so I am very, very interested in knowing if the Dead Sea Scrolls included a Hebrew or Aramaic version of Enoch.
Yeah, it definitely does.
Well, I thought the first part is written in Hebrew, and then there's the Book of Luminaries and whatnot that's in Greek. Yeah,
Okay, so.
like the oldest bit is Hebrew, and then there's bits.
Here, I find it. So, this is Aramaic. 11 Aramaic language fragments, so they're fragments, not manuscripts, of the Book of Enoch were found in Cave 4 of Qumran in 1948 during the care of the Israel Antiquities Authority. They're translated and discussed by Joseph Mielik and Matthew Black in the Books of Enoch. Another translation has been released by Vermes and Garcia. Let's see. Greek. So most of it we have from Greek, Coptic, and I think where that's strange. I think I might have missed where. Yeah, okay, Gez. The most extensive surviving early manuscripts of the Book of Enoch exist in the Gez language, and that's Ethiopic.
Yep.
But so what's interesting is that Aramaic and Ethiopic are. I mean, because by this time, I don't think you'd be having stuff being written in Hebrew. Which I mean, that also shows that it was if it was written in Aramaic, that helps to date the period in which it would have been written.
Yeah, and then the Gaez, right, kind of gives you like a sense of, okay, on a parallel Semitic path of from a language perspective. So here's a Semitic language in Gaez, right? And here's
Is Gaz Semitic? I thought Gaz was Egyptian.
It's
No, that's Coptic that you're thinking of.
Mm. Well, I mean, so for me personally, and this is just my personal thing, is I think the fact that there is a full copy of Isaiah, right, in the Dead Sea Scrolls, like that for me was huge, right? And I guess, I mean, unfortunately, the Dead Sea Scrolls aren't as complete as they were. But the 4 cubits of halacha, and it's funny reading what Father Stephen was saying about the Enochic tradition and the Essenes. Like, so he contrasts the Pharisaic way of looking at things versus the Enochic way of looking at things, because the Enochic literature doesn't mention any of the commandments, even circumcision. And I think most of Judaism, and that's the thing with 4QMMT, even for me, that it made it sound like, oh, this is Mikitzat Maseh Torah. Yes.
No, go ahead. Finish your thought. I was just saying after you said, yeah.
Okay.
After you're done.
So the 4 cubits of halacha, right? There's this idea with, and I mean, this is kind of my way of looking at it, but I think it is true, which is that, Jewish orthopraxy, the Jewish idea of Hanistarot Lashem Elokeinu, that which is hidden belongs to God, and that which is revealed belongs to us, right? I can't know what your faith is. I can't know if you're a good person or not in your heart and what your intentions are. All I can know is what you do and how you act and what the fruits are of your of what you do. And I think that's why when Jesus says, "By their fruits you shall know them," it's an incredibly Jewish way of looking at things. And so for me, the 4 cubits of halacha are ultimately we assess things and how Jewish things are by their material manifestation and how they can be viewed and seen in the world.
Basically, actions speak louder than words. And interestingly, it's also connected to the idea that even though Asiya is the lowest world, it's also the most important.
Jason raised his hand. I think he should go first.
Yeah,
and then
sorry.
I'll go, and then I've
No,
got
no,
a
you guys. I think you guys are probably going to say something more relevant. So you go ahead. Mine was.
But
kinda
you raised your
sideways.
hand. It's over.
No,
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 you
no,
raised
no,
your
no.
hand. You have to speak.
It was probably a rabbit trail, so I don't want to derail it anywhere. So go ahead. Go ahead. I'm listening. This
I've
is
got to do
interesting.
homework, but
Go do homework.
Good luck.
Goodbye.
Be a good boy.
Nerd.
Yep.
I'm just
See ya.
kidding.
But I do have one more thought after y'all go.
So I was just going to say that you guys are pointing out to actually a pretty main contention here that Paul gets at, right? And it's what is fruit, right? And what that really kind of points at is what are ends? Are ends the material ends, or are ends the mode of being, right? Is it the means, or is it actually the ends? Are the real ends actually the means? For instance, the fruits of the Spirit, he points at things that are not like, oh, look, I've got the nice car, I've got a nice house, I've got a temple, I've got whatever. No, it's joy, kindness, long suffering, self-control. It's the means by which you participate in a mode of being are the real ends. That's the real fruit.
Well, first, I have to say, I haven't put this up yet, but I want to show it to you people.
Oh wow.
Wait, you painted that?
I did not paint this.
Oh.
Is that the original?
That is not the original. I sent it to Kinko, to FedEx, and they printed it for me. And it
That's that's
printed
cool.
out pretty well.
Yeah.
All things considered, it actually it really looks, even in real life, it looks like it's. Sorry, had to grab the kitty because I wanted to have the kitty. It looks like it really looks very realistic. Like, even though it's just printed on paper, it looks like it's printed on canvas. Look, this is ultimately where I think Father Stephen's beliefs of Paul within Judaism fail. Because, yeah, I think Paul really did believe, as you say, that it doesn't matter if I feed my cat before I eat myself or not. It doesn't matter if I send a fugitive slave back or not. It doesn't matter if I follow the letter of the law. It only matters if I feel good about it.
Nah. So what we're aimed at, right, with those things is, while trying to obey those laws, to figure out whether or not, especially when you run into a conundrum, it's like, oh, do I follow the letter of this law? It's like, okay, look, give all yourself to God, your mind, your heart, your soul, your strength, right? It's like all of you, right? In fact, it might match up to something like what separates you from the tree, right? And what's reflective in the cherubim in some sense. Okay. So here's this 4-part thing of routing. It's all of you. all of you has to be submitted up to God. The way that's going to manifest is in love for your neighbor. Okay. Now, those two things are true, right? You're operating in the highest working through you, and that's pointed towards love of the other higher than yourself, which is also the highest you. Then what's going to manifest is the right decision about how to operate in the way, right, or the law, which you will see in kindness, gentleness, self-control, so on. And operating in that mode, right, will help you navigate.
Did that make sense, Jacob?
No,
You look confused. Well, I would say
it sounds like more Christian hand waving.
well,
By definition, you're right.
by
Why?
definition.
Because you're a Christian and you're waving your hand.
Well,
But
Well,
Sorry, go ahead.
I was
no,
just going to say,
go ahead. Yeah, sorry. Just go.
Oh,
You go. You go, Ariel.
yeah. One of the things I thought was really interesting, and like just quickly tying this back, and it won't take any time, but you said about the highest and like how that is one of the ways we refer to God, and it's interesting that like given like you could look at this as misguided, but you have this like connection to the narrative, even if it's like plays out in a different way. But that in the Phoenician account you have Elion or Elyon, which means the highest, and he's said to be married or paired with. And again, these are human forms of these concepts, or even deity, but that Elyon is married to Beirut, which is actually where the name Beirut comes from. But it some people think that it might be from like Be'erot, like Be'er Sheva, which it's a city, but basically Be'er means a well, or like a deep cistern. But alternatively, Beirut, like another form was Beriat, and Beriat might have like some connection to Bereshit, but basically just this idea that like Bereshit is how God creates the world, or God creates the world. Bereshit in Reshit. I don't know. It's one of those. I just thought it was interesting. But the other thing I was going to say though is when you were talking about the how in I forget which text you were talking about. Was it the Enochian text where there's no reference to circumcision or yeah?
So that's according to what Father Stephen says. Yeah.
So something that's interesting about that is you have this like this thing that gets pulled upon in the Christian tradition about being a priest like that in the order of Melchizedek. And the thing with that is Melchizedek was the king of Salem, or probably Jerusalem. But what's interesting about this is that he was considered righteous by God, but the way that he offered to God was with bread and with bread, oil, and wine, but not any sacrifice. And so implicitly, because the sacrifice is also connected, like the blood of the altar is connected to the blood of the covenant. So you might argue that the lack of circumcision might be because of this reorienting towards the order of Melchizedek as opposed to the Levitical order of priests.
By the way, I think you might find it interesting, Ariel, but apparently there's a discussion within Orthodox Judaism right now about Gentiles, Noahites bringing sacrifices, because apparently Rabbi Breitowitz, he basically has said publicly that he believes Gentiles are allowed to bring sacrifices on Bamot. For me, like, again, it goes back to kind of that whole thing with the fig tree, right? Like, there are lots of stories I can tell in which I can rationalize things in ways that don't have the harmony and beauty to them. She's actually asleep and twitching in her sleep.
I just love the shadow integration.
Shadow integration, yes. Very much shadow integration. Did you wake up? I'm sorry. But you were twitching in your sleep. So, like, the harmony and the beauty of things making sense over and over again, as opposed to trying to explain them away and trying to figure out a way of making them make sense, is what makes all the difference for me.
Yeah, well, you might be coming at it from a lens. I'm not saying this is the case. I know that it's possible to look at things from a lens. I've done a lot of this from a glass half empty, right, or cynical perspective, right? And it's like, okay, are we observing patterns as such, right, or are we forcing things to fit in places, right? So I try to talk about what we notice, right? Patterns that we notice, and it's, look, a lot of this stuff, it's like rational. We want to talk about rationality. I will go right for Dawkins. I will go right for Freud. I will go right for. There's like a lot more.
Oh my God! Did you see his interview with today?
Yeah, I did actually.
Oh God.
Wait, who?
Dawkins
Unheard people. Yeah.
with Unheard.
Yeah.
Wait, Darth Dawkins?
Yes.
And it may have been the most clueless and idiotic exposition of an old man losing his capacity to reason I have ever seen.
Sounds like Chomsky.
So I, you look
Very
at
similar. Yeah,
I
very
think
similar.
they also embody rationality, right?
I'm sorry, reading what he wrote, what he was saying, that had zero to do with rationality for me.
Well,
It was like him being obviously irrational.
I think that it shows a lack of logic.
We have a rabbi.
Hi, Rabbi. Can I say something about the whole harmonizing thing, though? I mean, I like when things blend together well, also, but I do think there's a time when you got to wrestle with things before they do that. Sometimes, maybe not all the time. I don't, and it does sometimes feel like. I mean, I've experienced that many times in church where I'm like, it just feels like you're doing acrobatics now, and like jumping through hoops and ignoring a bunch of other scripture to make this one fit rather than actually wrestling with it. And it does feel not genuine. So I understand the pushback against that. But sometimes there's a wrestling with it. And then when it comes together, it harmonizes almost more beautifully than before. And I'm not saying that would happen with that passage about Christ, or anything Paul says for that matter. Like, I don't necessarily have a problem with it, but I don't know. I'm kind of always put in this position where there's, well, not always, but now I am, where, I mean, I was telling my younger sister the other day, because we were talking about stuff, and she was telling me something throughout history, and I was like, well, why should I even believe that? Because like, I can write a history book and people would believe it. Like, I don't care unless I see it like actually come together in reality. And so it's just, but then I kind of have to take almost everything written seriously. Like, I'll have to look at the Greek myths and be like, is there something true here? Is there something and so you could discard the stuff Jesus says you don't like. I feel like more and more I'm coming to the conclusion that if you just take those two things, the image of God being within man, and you push those to their limit, you end up with something like what Christ did on the cross, or any of these other, or the 10 martyrs in the rabbinic tradition that you mentioned. Like, you end up with, and I feel like you don't even really, I don't know. That's why even when I was talking on the EA Dawa channel and hearing that they had that same idea.
Wait, when was that?
It's a while back. It's got,
Khalil is in
I think
prison
everything got
right now.
removed. Yeah, everything got removed. But they had this idea where it was like, because I think that idea is implicit in their religion as well, that God, the image of God is in man, that you get to this point and it's like you have to kind of reconcile with everyone else in order to actually see the face of God. Like you can't actually see God's face, because if there's a portion of God within every person, you need every person. And so you have to actually make this leap of forgiving your brother and your neighbor, however, whatever you want to put it. I don't know, and I feel like the more you push those two ideas to their limit and just keep pushing them throughout eternity, the more you end up with, I mean, something like Metatron or something like that, too, where you have this child right of God or something. I don't really know. So yeah, the wrestling with the stories, I don't know. I think there's something to it, but ultimately, like, I don't know that we have to wrestle with every story and make it fit. I don't know.
So to answer your question, Ariel, Khalil is in prison, and I believe he took his entire channel down. And that's a whole other story. Yeah. I don't know if I've told you the story of my first time breaking my head on the Talmud, but I like telling the story, so I'm going to subject you to it again. So I was usually the smartest kid in class, one of the smartest kids in class in high school, and then when I went to college. And so when I went to yeshiva, I figured I would be the smartest kid in class there too. And on the first real piece of Talmud that we were learning, there was I was trying to figure out what Rashi and Tosfot were arguing about, and I didn't get it. And I didn't understand it. And at some point, when I don't understand something, I usually go, okay, this must just be stupidity. Right? But I was sitting there and I thought to myself, well, that doesn't make sense, because this is like the very beginning of the Talmud, that like Talmud class. And the Talmud's this huge text, right? And I'm at this yeshiva where obviously they're trying to like wow me with the greatness of the Talmud. So they must have taken one of the better texts to study. And there have been thousands of Jews for thousands of years studying this text. And so it can't just be that it's just stupidity. I have to be missing something. So I actually sat there and I was like struggling with it, and I'm struggling with it. And then it's called breaking your head on the Talmud, because suddenly it breaks and everything becomes clear. And there was this comma in the text that like I had put with my pencil, and I understood what the Talmud was, because the Talmud is a commentary on the Mishnah. And it was trying to explain what the disagreement was in the Mishnah, right? And Rashi and Tosfot are two commentaries, and they were disagreeing. And it all cleared up, right? And I just circled that comma, because like that was me like actually recognizing to myself that I wasn't the smartest kid in the class, that there was thousands of rabbis from thousands of years of Talmudic study that were in that class with me. So that's my thing as far as, yeah.
That reminds me of the birth of Athena in the Greek myth. Have you heard that one?
Yes.
With Zeus's headache, and then his head bursts open, and then there's Lady Wisdom comes out.
So there's actually a really interesting way that this ties into the Tanakh. So given it takes a little, I mean, it's not like a stretch. It's only like I guess like a linguistic stretch in that Venus is not the same as Aphrodite, but they are the same. Like they are, but they're not. In that way, Athena's in the Bible. And like I know that sounds completely insane, but you know Shamgar?
Wait, some more. I love Athena, so keep going.
Where's
Yeah.
Shamgar?
So Shamgar is in Shoftim. He's one of the judges, but
Yeah.
so there's this phenomena that you have with certain characters. Like certain characters in the Bible are never mentioned, and they only appear like within Midrash, or it's like and the mom of like for instance, I think that like David's mom never actually appears narratively, but later they talk about her and they say her name was Nitzevet. But then you have characters who they're only mentioned once, and they're only mentioned in relation to another character. And Anat or Athena, because there's like it might be that they came from a similar origin, or that Athena might have even come from Anat. But part of the reason why it's kind of was it?
Judges. The end of Judges chapter 3 is Shamgar with a nut. Sorry.
Wait.
Go with this. Yeah.
Judges chapter 3. I have it in Judges 5-6.
Sorry.
The days of Shamgar.
Wait. So here's before we go to that, one thing that I thought was really interesting, and this shows you how the tradition gets interpreted different ways by the monotheistic Jews versus the pagan Phoenicians. But where was it? Is it? Elo.
Do you need your screen back up, Ariel?
Oh yeah, that would probably help. Let's see.
I think
you're still showing the whatchamacallit.
Oh yeah. Okay, no, it's because I wanted to show this real quick. So, here, but the auxiliaries of Ilus, who is Kronos, were called. So, like within this context, it almost seems like the Phoenician way of understanding, the name of God, like Elohim, but with a hey, is as almost like. And again, I think this kind of goes into where you have more of a Christian understanding, but how it could be understood a bit more as like the angels plus the one that they're named after. But the thing that, so to see what this guy says about Athena, moreover, here's the first reference. And to Cronus were born children, Persephone and Athena, the former of whom died a virgin, but by the advice of Athena and Hermes, Cronus made a scimitar. Okay, yeah, so this doesn't talk about it as much, but here, I'll pull up Safaria. So Shamgar, which it's interesting because his name means. Oh wow! I didn't even connect that. His name doesn't it mean sword?
Shamgar means he lives there. I am not aware of Shamgar meaning sword.
This says sword in the, but I don't know.
So okay, so that's fascinating because here I'll go. Or wait, I can duplicate the page. Duplicate and then go back, because the thing that I didn't even realize until I went to this, like in context combination with it. But here you can see. So Athena died a virgin, but by the advice of Athena and Hermes, Kronos or Ilus made a scimitar and a spear of iron. Like it almost seems like here they're connecting Athena with the sword, which I mean that itself might not be that much of a stretch. But then here you have Shamgar or sword, Ben Anat. But what's interesting is Anat. It says father of Shamgar, but it doesn't actually say father of Shamgar. It says Shamgar, the son of Anat. And, we take it for granted that, that must be the father because of the patrilineal naming system. But the thing is that we also know that if someone was considered a bastard or they didn't know who their father was, they would be referred to by their mother's name. So it's one of those things where it's like if you lived in the time when, people knew this, or basically if you lived in this time when this account happened, if you were to say I am the son of Anat, that there's really only one connotation that has, especially because Anat only appears, I think it's only once in all of the Tanakh, and it's just referenced as the parent of Shamgar.
Okay, what does that have to do with Athena?
So Athena is derived from Anat, and here, let me close that. So Anat, what's really interesting about this is she was a war goddess, very similar to Kali. She one of the stories, she almost destroys the entire world. Let's see, where is it? But the thing that's particularly interesting with this, let's see, Athena. So she's equivocated with Athena, but on top of that, here. At some point in the Bronze Age, either during the reign of the Hyksos or shortly after its end, Anat was introduced to Egypt and achieved a degree of prominence during the reign of Ramses II, whose devotion to her is well attested. Evidence for Egyptian worship of Anat is also available from various sites in Israel and Palestine, which were controlled by the pharaohs in the Bronze Age. She remained a part of the Egyptian pantheon as late as in the Roman period. In the first millennium BCE, she also continues to be worshipped in Suhum in Mesopotamia. She is attested in a number of Phoenician inscriptions. Most of them come from Cyprus. They indicate that on this island, an association between her and the Greek goddess Athena, based on their similar character. The only references to Anat in the Hebrew Bible are indirect and are limited to toponyms, as I think it's Beit Anat, and theophoric names, which is presumed to indicate that she was not commonly worshipped in the kingdom of Israel. So it's one of those things where it's it's iffy enough that there is no actual discussion as to who this Anat is, and so contextually it seems like it's that. But again, it could be that we're reading it within a certain context because this is seen as either monotheistic or pagan, or that this somehow would be clashing. But I don't even think that's necessarily the case, because there's plenty of within Christian tradition, there's discussion of Caesar, and Caesar considered himself to be descended from Venus. So it's one of the things where it might have just been a claim to divinity, and that's also why it's back in this time of the judges before you have everything that's formalized, and the way that people were acting was
It's like the spirit of the age, but then you have peoples operating on different nous, right? Is the way the Greeks might talk about it.
Yeah.
Right. And then it's clashing of these things.
And another thing that's really interesting is that the owl is usually associated with wisdom in our culture, and that's because of Athena. But interestingly enough, the owl is a really, really dumb animal, and I mean, I say that with love. They're cute. They're also vicious, but that's what it comes from. Athena being the goddess of warfare and wisdom, which basically is strategy. And the thing is that you can connect that with an owl, because owls, they're vicious. You want a bird of prey. That's one of your best ones, especially when you're dealing with one that's seen as maybe a bit more feminine, as opposed to an eagle, which could be seen as more masculine. But with that, it's really interesting, because the association to Athena comes through warfare, not wisdom. And the owl's only associated with wisdom because of the association with Athena. It's almost it's circular logic.
So Robert Graves and Carl Jung, I think, we're looking at these things in a similar way to how you're looking at them, right? And mapping ages, right? And peoples, and okay, so here's how this lays itself out, right? In peoples of migrations, where they went, the languages, the culture, the spirit of the age, all of it, right? It gives us a full mapping and accounting of our past as such.
Okay, 2 points of order. First point of order, we should have done our closing prayer about an hour ago, so people who wanted to go to bed, like Sandy, could have gone to bed. I didn't get the hint. Michael, I propose you say the closing prayer.
Oh, goodness. It's going to be very Protestant of me.
You don't have to say a Protestant prayer.
No, but the way in which I'll go about the prayer is going to end up kind of Protestant, I'm sure.
Okay.
Lord, we thank you for our time together. We thank you for our fellowship, and that you draw us together and not apart. And I pray that you bring peace to our rest and our time throughout the week. We thank you and glorify you. Amen.
Amen.
Second point of order, very, very important article I remembered. Nations atheists standing strong despite existence of bacon. When the Babylon Bee put this up, I responded on their Facebook with looks Jewishly at Christians claiming bacon is proof of the existence of God. I just had to point that out. And now we can go back and discuss Athena and Anat.
Yeah, I
But,
think
so-
the owl is feminine because it's veiled though too, right? I think that
Also-
adds to it because it's got a cloak of darkness sort of thing. All those
Yeah.
things tie into it.
The association with, and it also connects with the idea of Lilith as well, because so Lilith is Lilith is actually she's a phantom. I mean, like I'm using it because that's the term, even though she isn't understood as one within Judaism or really technically any tradition. But basically, she's a phantom goddess, and what that means is people created her. I mean, I guess you could say that about all these gods, but what I mean specifically is that people from a point later than the time that she's supposed to have been around created her, and it's similar to if you've ever heard of people claiming that Ostara or like Eostre was a pagan god in Germania. It's not true. The truth is there was Eostre, which was a month. It was the month of Easter. But the point I'm trying. Wait, how was I connecting that? Basically, that Lilith, the name is in reference to the Lilitu in Babylon, or the Liliti. I forget how it's rendered in Hebrew, but I think it's in Jeremiah, isn't it?
Isaiah 34, I think. The one reference of Lilith, Lilith. So like a screech owl, I think it translated in some translation.
Yes.
Isaiah 34, verse 14.
Oh, I forgot I stopped sharing here. I pulled it up. So, and it's also interesting because another connection that you can find between the Greek and the Hebrew is let's see, is it
34:14.
Yeah. Okay. So see this word, sa'ir. So look at how it's translated, he-goat. But it can also be a satyr, or like this idea of like a goat demon. And one of the reasons why that's interesting is because you actually have a reference in the I'm trying to think. It's the Shrines of the Gates. Have you ever heard of that term?
Nope.
So it's in 2 Kings. It's talking about the Hezekiah's reforms. So here, he brought all the priests from the towns of Judah to this is from 2 Kings to Jerusalem and defiled the shrines where the priests had been making offerings from Geva to Beersheba. He also demolished the shrines of the gates. Now, if you go off of the Masoretic text, that's what you're going to get. But so look at this. Was this Asher? Okay. Migava Beersheba. Wait, Venatats et Bamot. He was demolished. It's saying Natats. He pulled down the Bamot, the high places. So here it says She'arim, the high places, or the gates that Asher Petach Sa'ar. What is this? The shrines of the gates that were at the entrance of the gate of Joshua. Like it's very redundant. But on the other hand, if it's at Bamot Haset Arim instead of Sharim, the high places of the satyrs, Asher, that were at the entrance of the gate of Joshua. Like the context changes, but the reason is because we know that. I mean, it's even referenced in in Kings that Shlomo that he established pagan shrines in the temple, right?
Having double language in Hebrew is very normal. I mean, I don't know why you would say it's Hasarim as opposed to Hasharim.
Well, because I see what you're saying, but it could just be he demolished the high places that were at the entrance of the gate of Joshua. But by saying he demolished the high places of the gates that were at the entrance to the gate, the gates
Okay.
were yeah.
So this is one of the things of specificity which I constantly point out to Christians trying to make very particular things, for example, Keori and Ke'ari, right, in Psalm 22, which is Hebrew for thousands of years, until very recently, relatively, was written without any nekudot, was written without any of the dots. And so people had to understand the words vaguely from the hints that were in the language. And you should always assume that the actual nekudot, that the actual things are what you would assume it was, right? So when I see Kaf, Aleph, Resh, Yud, I think Ka'ari, like a lion, as opposed to, oh, this is the only time in the entirety of the Hebrew language that a verb has been made Ka'ar, right? And similarly, like if you see Hey, Shin, Ayin, Resh, Yud, Mem, you're going to think Hasha'arim, not that it's a sin there for some reason. You know what I mean?
I mean, not necessarily, because how would you say the goats Hasarim? And like the reason I say this is you have to look at the greater context. It's talking about the king ordered the high priest Hilkiah to take out the all the objects made for Baal and Asherah and to destroy them, to take out the idolatrous priests. This is specifically within the context of idolatry. So it makes just as much. And then you also have the whole idea of Shivim Panim LaTorah. Like technically, the fact that is what it could say. Not just a matter of like this is like, oh well, if you try to take this letter off, like it's literally the same. Se'arim and She'arim is spelled the same exact way except for nekudot.
I mean, Shivim Panim LaTorah, you have more of a, Al Tikra Sharim El Aserim, that makes more sense. But I was just checking if Sa'ir is actually written with an aleph or an ayin.
It's an ayin.
It is? Okay.
Yeah, I have it pulled up right. I don't know if it's. Oh yeah, right here. So it and like you can see.
Okay, Sa'ir. Okay.
Like right here, you see it says gate here, but if you keep scrolling down, it goes into where is it? Okay, yeah. This only has it specifically with those nekudot, but it's spelled the same way.
Mm.
And so it's one of those things where like it doesn't directly contradict it. Like it
well, Sa'ir does usually have a yud in it, right?
Yeah, but I'm not sure if it. I don't think it would have it. Se'irim. Yeah. Okay, so yeah, you're right in that case. But there's. Let's see, Se'irim.
I mean, yes, yud without a yud. Like you can certainly say read it that way as an alternate reading. It's just I don't think it would be the primary reading somebody, and I don't know, maybe it's me with reading Rabbi Sachs' book and him talking so much about the difference between Hebrew and Greek, but I really do think it does, like that's part of the huge difference is with the Hebrew, like you have the you have to assume that the simplest reading is the reading, because Hebrew itself is just not as exact as Greek is.
Wait, really? You think so?
Yeah, of course. I mean, you're reading with nekudot. Imagine living at a time before there were nekudot.
True.
And what, nekudot are 1,000 years old?
Yeah, just it's the Masoretic text, right? That
Well, the Masoretes came out with the various types of vocalization, but they came up with it particularly because of this. But for like thousands of years, Hebrew was written without any nikudot, and so you always assumed that which is the most natural reading, and that's why you have that method of midrash, al tikra ela, right? Don't read it this way, rather read it that way, which tells you, oh, you could read it a secondary way, but the primary way always has to be that which is simple.
Okay, so I found it. So the Seirim is, so it's from Sa'ir to mean raindrops, but then here it has it as Seirim, but the plural for Sa'ir as satyr or demon, here it has it listed, the Bamot Ha. Okay, this is interesting. Apparently, wait, is this also? I need to open this. Apparently, there is a reference to it as. Oh, shit, sorry, 1 second. Someone's calling me.
How dare somebody call you?
Also to the person, because I'm sharing this on our channel as well. I'll send the Discord invite in a moment. I'm just trying to find. Okay, so the let's see, something about the goat demons. Okay, no more to the here. Oh wait, no. Here it still has it. Yeah, so it is rendered differently, but yeah. Okay, so
yeah, I mean, I think this is just oftentimes a very different way of looking at things. Like Andrew says, Greek is exact as hell, extends to the theologians too, despite what the mystery EO would say.
Yeah, though there is an interesting thing that if you look at the ones that are mentioned, and I need to find where that reference is, but these like the jackal, the wildcat, the satyr, the Lilith, or the night owl, all these things are there's I think it's in the Talmud where it references different pagan gods being worshipped with these images.
Yeah.
Like it directly corresponds. Like this is formulaic in that it's referencing another thing. I just don't remember off the top of my head.
Okay, I am actually quite tired. I would love to leave this going. Jason is an admin on my channel, and he can turn it off when he likes. But I think I am actually going to go to bed because I'm kind of tired.
Yeah,
And I'm going to be streaming a lot tomorrow. You're also going to go to bed, Jason?
Probably. It's after midnight here. I'm pretty tired too. But I do find this extremely interesting, and I'd like to pick this up again later.
Well,
sure.
Ariel has his own channel. I don't know if he's going to continue this on his channel after we finish here. Okay, let me put a link to Ariel's. Which of your two channels? It looks like Asherah's Orchard is the one people are watching on.
Yeah,
And
another one is archival in case.
I will put a link to that in the chat. So
Oh, is that what this link is up at the top here?
Yeah. So
Cool.
when you're a guest on someone else's StreamYard, you can if they enable it, which I have, you can also broadcast to your channel.
That's cool.
Yeah, it is. And it was nice having people from Ariel's channel join us. But I am actually more tired than I usually am. Today's been a long day. So, yeah, I think we'll say
Yeah.
goodbye. And if Ariel's going to start another stream, he will start another stream. And we will
Yeah.
talk later.
Thanks, Jacob. Have a good night.
Good night.